Welcome to Film 360, the Full Circle Film Show. Tonight I've got a good friend, Adam Argyle. He's here. We're going to talk about Phoenix Incorporated, which just landed on Amazon Prime and we're pretty excited about. So sit tight for Film 360. We want to thank our sponsors, Voyage Direct Primary Care and Creative Stream, and we're going to be showing you a little bit more about them later. But let's welcome our guest, Adam Argyle. We've been friends for a lot of years.
Yeah,
now.
several years.
Worked on a lot of projects together.
Mhm.
So he's an actor and he's a fight choreographer, and I think I'm forgetting a couple other great items on the resume. But why don't you just give a little intro to yourself?
So, yeah, as you said, we worked on a lot of great projects together. I kind of more of a stage actor, but love dabbling in film and playing around. I got my start at a very young age swinging swords and fencing with my father, so kind of segued into Shakespeare and moved on from there, theater major in college, and haven't looked back since.
Now, when it comes to fight choreography, this is something I've thought about. Where do you find you use it more, for the stage or for the screen?
You know, that's a tough question. I find that I use it almost everywhere. One of the things that I find is interesting, I may not be dealing with actors who have gone into theater going, I'm going to get into a fight on stage, but have you ever had to slap somebody, right? Have you ever seen the Three Stooges, Keystone Cops? That's all stage combat. Pratfalls, feint. You may never have to pick up a sword in your entire theatrical career, but I guarantee you're going to have to fall at some point. And that. And so you use it even in shows that don't even have stage directions of they fight.
What has been your favorite fight to choreograph?
You know, I think it was a stage production of Three Musketeers I did at the Covey about 8 years ago. One of the fight sequences ended up being about 5 minutes long and involved about 13 people. You had the Three Musketeers plus D'Artagnan fighting each 2 to 3 guards, and then you add in a couple of other bystanders, and that was really fun, kind of working collaboratively with each of the actors. I was the co-choreographer, and we kind of let each of the actors develop kind of their own phrases, and then I was asked to weave all of the different phrases together through the set piece, and it ended up being an extremely tiring but very epic sword fight.
Awesome. Now, I didn't even intend to talk a lot about fight choreography, but I think it is important and overlooked in a lot of smaller budget productions, especially. But what are some of the main safety problems that you've seen on sets, especially film sets?
So a lot of the safety problems I run into on film sets are either not thinking through timeline. It takes a lot of rehearsal to get those fights to the point where they look good but are safe. With film, we kind of have a little bit of leeway because all I need to be able to do it is do it perfectly once or twice, as long as we can get the angles and shots the director wants. But once we've got those shots, we're done with that choreography. So we can work really hard and fast and get it up to speed on camera, and then, all right, let's move on to the next chunk. Whereas on stage, you've got to be able to do it start to finish flawlessly for 6 weeks every night. So not planning through how much time it will take. Sometimes it's the props. They're like, well, we're going to grab these swords, but these swords weren't made for full-on
Not battle ready.
combat yet. Well, not even just battle ready. Even the battle ready ones sometimes will be not quite up to snuff. The stage combat ones, they're designed balanced like a battle ready one, but they're designed to be able to withstand the repeated hits that even a battle ready sword wouldn't have had to withstand.
Interesting.
So
Okay, and I actually got to experience your fight choreography as well as your safety side up close and personal, because I learned a lot of lessons when we worked together. Since you kind of became our safety and fight choreographer. Anyway, what about guns? Let's talk about guns for a minute, because I think almost every indie filmmaker out there has guns in their first production.
of course.
And has no idea how to be safe, because I didn't.
So with guns, you follow basically the same principles that you learn in any gun safety course. These things are tools. You don't point it at something you don't intend to shoot. You don't, right? You'll treat it as if it's loaded, regardless of whether it's loaded or not. But on a set, we have some protocols that we follow. Usually, you'll have designated crew members that is their job, is to handle the firearms. As soon they're the ones that walk in, hand them off to the actors at the last second before they're actually needed. And there's some call and response stuff that we do to let them know, so that way the actor knows, hey, this gun is loaded, it's ready to go. When the actor hands it back off to the wrangler, right, we know the status of the gun. And then, of course, with camera, it's really nice because we can do a lot of tricks with angles and stuff. So it looks like I'm aiming at somebody and I'm like 3 feet away and completely offline.
What's your recommendation on real firearms on set versus prop firearms?
Where possible, especially with a lower budget, if you can get non-firing replicas, they're much better, because obviously you have no danger of somebody getting hurt. The flip side is, if you're actually going to be firing something, then you'd have to work out some sort of believable visual effect in post. But a lot of times they might be easier to come by.
Yeah.
But even on a big budget set, even we have fully functioning firing firearms. They are not designed as real firearms. They are designed as props, firing blanks. They can't be firing real. A lot of times they're not even chambered for a real round.
Yeah.
More like caps or things. So
Yeah.
you get the muzzle flash and the bang, but but sometimes they're harder to come by or more expensive, and sometimes they're not the best quality either in terms of workmanship. They'll jam really easy, and then you've got to deal with that. So it's go with what you want to see, and then make sure if you've got live round stuff that you're following the proper protocol.
And let's talk about the call and response stuff, because that was a big part of what was new to me. So when you'd hand me a gun before you did, I can't remember the terminology now off the top of my head.
Okay, so the terminology will be different. So if I'm handing you a gun and it's actually supposed to be fired in the shot, then if I'm the wrangler, I'm going to make sure that the gun is all ready to go, right? It's cocked, locked, ready to rock, whatever, right? So I'd hand it off to you in a safe position, barrel down, right? And it says, all right, here you are, weapon is hot, meaning it's ready to go.
That's right.
And then you would, when you take the gun, you would say thank you, it acknowledge you, thank you, weapon is hot, okay? And then when we've got the take, we're going to do that, and we need to reset, whether we need to reset the take or if we're good on the take, whatever. You'd hand it back to me, and you'd say, all right, say we actually didn't get to the point where you had to fire it in the shot. So you'd hand it back to me, no shots fired, weapon is hot, right? And I'd say, thank you, no shots fired, weapon is hot. That way we know exactly the status of the gun, what I need to do with it. If you fired the shot, you'd let me know how many, right? Fired one shot, weapon is hot. Or if in the shot, right, you fired it, it was a single action, right, gun, so it has to be cocked. You can say weapon is cold, right? So it's a way for us to be able to know what the status of the gun is, and everybody interacting with that weapon knows the status of the weapon at that time.
And you've got some certifications, correct?
Yes, I've been through a lot of training. Even though we'll use the term certifications, they really aren't a certificate saying, "Hey, I'm certified to do this." What it is they're more accurately called skills proficiencies, and that I have taken some firearms training through the Society of American Fight Directors. I have some skills proficiency in a few different weapon styles, and that. And really what their certifications are, it really just says, hey, Adam has gone through our prescribed training for these particular disciplines, so when he says he knows what he's doing, we'll back him up.
Fair. Awesome. Okay, Adam is part of a group. They're called the Masters of Dueling. And what real quick, we're going to take a break for some sponsors in a sec, but talk about what the Masters of Dueling is.
So the Masters of Dueling is myself and two colleagues of mine, Jacob Tice and Matthew Carlin. All of us have really found our niche in theater with stage combat. And Jacob and I were asked several years ago to provide a sword fight demonstration at one of the first years of the Utah Valley Renaissance Fair. And we came up with this idea of a stage combat comedy show, and we ended up pulling in our friend Matthew, and we're really getting some steam. You've got 3 different personas, and think about Three Stooges with swords, and yeah, it's quite fun. We'll potentially we'll be at FanX in this coming month. We will definitely be at the Utah Valley Renaissance Fair in August. We'll be up at the Renaissance Fair up in Ogden in May, and potentially up at Wizarding Days in Logan in July. So
great. And you can check out, they have a Facebook page, Masters of Dueling. You should check it out. They actually post some really fun stuff in addition to information about events they'll be at. So we're going to take a quick break for sponsors. When we be back, we're going to talk about Adam's acting side of things. So just sit tight.
Hello, I'm Dr. John Sanders. I'm a family physician, and the reason that I went into medicine was because I love helping and caring for people. I created Voyage Direct Primary Care because the cost and complexities of insurance companies have driven people away from accessing the care that they need. I am a board-certified family physician, and physicians across the nation provide upwards of 90% of health care to Americans. As such, I'm uniquely positioned to provide that care to my clients. Cutting out the middlemen, cutting out the cost and complexities of insurance, and putting care back into the healthcare model. So how does it work? For one low monthly fee, Voyage Direct Primary Care provides you with fantastic holistic family medical care. Voyage Direct Primary Care offers unprecedented access to your family doc via same-day office visits, but also we provide access via text, phone call, video chat. There are no copays or deductibles for any of these services. It's just one low monthly fee. In order to optimize your wellness, I like to spend adequate time with you. I like to listen to your problems and get to know you and build that relationship. It's not uncommon for me to spend 30 to 60 minutes with my clients. This helps me be the best doctor for you that I can be. Voyage Direct Primary Care puts old school principles back into healthcare, where your physician really gets to know you, has a relationship with you, and isn't afraid to make house calls on occasion. Voyage Direct Primary Care offers a unique healthcare experience that can save you money whether you have insurance or not. To learn more or sign up, visit voyagedpc.com. Voyage Direct Primary Care, where caring is our superpower.
Welcome back. now we're going to start tackling your other, the other half. So initially, I made the short film of Phoenix, and as I was thinking of people to cast, you were one of the first people to come to mind. Having seen you act in some roles, I thought you have the appropriate persona. You could portray it well to be Elijah.
Thank you.
But also as a bonus, I also thought, hey, he's a great fight choreographer too, because I'd been in some shows that you had done work for. So it kind of came as a bonus, but ended up being a huge part of what we did. So that was really fun. But I want to talk to you about how you tackled the role of Elijah, because he wasn't meant to be easy, an easy part to play. So and it's funny because I would edit for hours, and then when we would do dubbing or something, I'd be like, this isn't the same person that was on set. Like it was funny because it felt so natural when you did it that I would forget that it wasn't really how you were outside of filming, which is great.
So I approached Elijah like I do most any character I'm cast in. The first thing I do is the text. I read the lines, the dialogue, the script. That gives me the first impression of who this guy is. And so with Elijah, he was very, very cool customer, very collected, very methodical, very calculating. I really kind of enjoyed that very first stinger teaser of the short film, and you're like, okay, he doesn't seem like he's the best guy there. He's kind of being set up as the villain. It kind of gave me an idea of the fact that he has some very hard edges to it. But then I kind of got into his reasoning and why he does what he does, and really started kind of finding the layers to the character. I mean, any person, there's going to have multiple layers. The next thing I do is, once I kind of have an idea of the character from the dialogue, from what he says, I then kind of find a part of myself. And Anthony Hopkins has talked about doing this, that he doesn't play a character, he plays himself.
Yeah.
And I kind of find myself doing the same thing. I find an aspect of my personality that I share with the character, and I sort of exaggerate that as the character. So with him, I enjoy kind of the calculating side, the methodical, plan things out. I'm never been one to formally write things down, but Elijah is, and I found it was fun to play that side.
Excellent. What would you say, and this is getting into me a little bit, this is your chance to take some pot shots at me. What were some of the hardest things during production? It's a low budget production, largely volunteer. It was intense.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the biggest challenges?
So I think with the original short film, I think part of it was getting the dialogue down, and that and kind of almost guerrilla filmmaking, and still kind of learning this as we moved into the episodes that we filmed. I had a better handle on the character and was able to tweak the dialogue a bit. As I got more in, I was like, okay, well, I'm playing Elijah, and I know what you're trying to say, but that's not the way I would say it. So I'd tweak words or change up phrases here and there, but I kind of appreciate that he gave me the liberty to do that. But
yeah,
that I think that was sometimes the writing of it. I'm like, okay, it doesn't quite feel natural. I understand what you're saying, and so I'd maybe try and tweak. Say this is how I would say it as Elijah, and I think it's coming across the same way.
Yeah, in fact, collaborative directing is what I'm all about. I think I've never done my best work as a dictator, and frankly, all the ideas that you brought took it up, to another level. It tuned the dialogue, because, I mean, I've written dialogue that rhymed when it wasn't supposed to rhyme sometimes, and occasionally my dialogue gets a little sloppy, because I read it in my head just fine, but somebody else reads it and not so much. So
That's how I would
it.
say it, but
Yeah, I appreciated those things that you brought that not only were from yourself, but also from your weapons training, from the various types of training you had, which gave it a terminology that I didn't have. So what advice would you give to a director in that situation? What could I have done better, and what could somebody else do better to make that process?
I think as an actor, the biggest thing that helps me is when the director trusts me as an actor and say that. And even though, sometimes things got stressful, I never felt that I was not trusted. And that I've been asked and hired to do a job. Let me do my job, right? And my job is to give you what you want to see. So on the one hand, trust me to do my job, but on the other hand, let me know what you need, and so I have a clear understanding of what you want to see, and then let me do my job and help you see that.
One thing I was curious, since you are primarily a stage actor, the first several times I saw you and worked with you were on stage. He was Gandalf in a production of The Hobbit with puppets. It was great.
That concept was really kind of cool. I love that concept.
What have you found to be the biggest difficulty in being between film and stage? Do you ever find yourself like being in one zone and having to really push over?
I only once have I found that, and that was I'm used to more theatrical stylings when it comes to vocal patterns, and so I was on set for a show, a film once where the first line I gave, they got through and they're like, all right, now your mic's right here, you can talk normally. But for me, I've never really found it too difficult. I enjoy the challenges. They're almost enough of a different animal, right? Where stage, I have to be able to be seen from 50 feet away, right? And then the back of the house and that. Whereas I can do a lot of things on film when I've got the camera right up in my face. And do things with just subtle eye movements, and I find it kind of really fun doing both, and that also kind of with the writing on a stage versus screen. I sometimes I feel like I have a little bit more time to focus, or have to focus a little bit more when I'm on screen. So I've just got to get this one. I've got to get this one scene, and I may be shooting a scene from the end of the piece before I've ever done anything for the first, and so I've got to think through it a little bit and say, okay, where am I coming from? Where am I going? I haven't actually shot that piece yet. Whereas on stage, I start at the beginning and I go to the end.
Yeah.
So I can build that arc.
Well, and on Phoenix was probably the most chaotic sketch filming I have ever not only seen but been a part of, because it took me weeks to nail that down. It'd be like, okay, this afternoon we're gonna do this scene from episode 1 and this scene from episode 2, or like the police station. You weren't even there for these parts, but we filmed all the scenes from all the episodes from this angle, and then we would do all the scenes from all the episodes from a different angle.
Oh,
we
wow.
did that because we only had two police filing cabinets, and we had to move them around to make it look like we had more. And so it reduced our setup time, but we had to be like, okay, which tie are they wearing now? Is he wearing a suit coat or not a suit coat? And
Yeah, that was what I remember. I remember one day on set where I think I wore 6 different outfits that day because we were bouncing between so many different scenes. That was fun though. I actually really enjoyed that.
I'm proud that it turned out, but it could have gone off the rails fast if you guys hadn't all been quick on your feet. Because there were times where it was a complete emotional shift, a complete arc shift. Oh jeez.
Yeah, there were a couple times where I would have to go and say, okay, wait a minute, I need to go look at my script for a second. All right, where am I? Where am I coming from? Okay, all right, I've got it.
And there were a couple times where I know some of the actors just said, I did not to me, I could just know that they were saying to each other, I don't know what we're doing, but this is the scene. So here we go. Like, the trust that everybody had in me was kind of ridiculous in hindsight. I felt like I was communicating my everything very well, but shoot. So I've never really been able to decompress with any of the actors and kind of get some feedback. But what were some of your favorite things about Phoenix?
So I think one of my favorite things about Phoenix was the story and the character of Elijah, and kind of discovering his backstory and kind of building that out, which I hope we'd be able to reveal more at some point, because he's got some really fun things and I've got some really cool ideas on that. But just the idea behind it of having this guy who has this skill set, this eye for detail, and using that to help people out of hard times and that. And I kind of always wanted to know, where did that come from?
You know, it's funny because it stands out in the lineup of my stories. If you were to see all the different stories I've ever written, that one just doesn't feel like it fits. It actually came from kind of a personal place, unlike a lot of my other stories as well. It hit at a time in my life, so I had this rough idea. It was kind of a medieval fantasy story initially. The Phoenix was like an actual character and could kind of change people from an old life into almost like a process of conversion, right, to a higher level of living or whatever. I mean, it was very, very fantasy.
And getting shades of gargoyles.
I mean, yeah, it was nothing like what it is. But it evolved over years. I was in a difficult place. I was at a job I hated. I was at a kind of just a place where every day felt like I was slogging through the same junk over and over and over again. Yeah. But I was pretty recently married, and so I was in this place where I wanted to escape my life, but I was married, and I didn't want to leave my wife. I couldn't think of leaving her, so I hit this spot just like Aiden does in this short film, where I kind of wanted to be dead. Like, I kind of wanted to die, but I didn't want to be dead. I wanted to be able to leave behind everything that I had and start fresh, completely new. And I felt like, if I could do that, things would change for me. And so I wrote the short story, and I really loved it, but I kept thinking of all these other things, like, I should try and stick in this little subplot and this subplot and this, and they were all other clients that Elijah had. And that it wasn't until we were in production that I realized, that would make for really good TV.
Yeah.
Especially because suicide is such a problem. And I wanted to tell a story that told people, no, stay. Even if it means leaving everything behind, stay. And that's, in a lot of ways, Phoenix Inc. is really strong in my mind, because it's like the antithesis of 13 Reasons Why. It's almost the exact opposite. It tells people why life is hard, but says, no, you need to stick around for it anyway. So, yeah, it's a story I don't tell a lot because it is somewhat personal, but I think it's important for people to know where it comes from. So I appreciate that question.
Well, I really like it. That's one of the things. Another one of the things I really enjoyed about it is the fact that it's very much similar to a lot of the popular procedurals on TV now, but the message behind it is something you don't see. It's like, there is hope, right? There are people out there who are good. There are people out there who want to help you, right? And that, and I really latched onto that. I really loved that about the show overall, and the character of Elijah in specific.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming in, joining today. This was kind of interview that it didn't go where I expected it to, but I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. It's been fun. I look forward to working with you some more. So.
And we were talking about during one of the breaks, Masters of Dueling, in addition to simply performing, you guys what are some of the other
Yeah.
things that you offer?
So yeah, we of course provide entertainment and that, but we're also actors, trained choreographers in that. So we will do workshops, we'll do choreography for shows, film, whatever. Yeah, Masters of Dueling on Facebook. Reach out to us. We're there. The Masters of Dueling. Excuse me. The Masters of Dueling at gmail.com. Email us. We'd love to help out where we can and have some fun.
Awesome. And Phoenix Inc. is available on Amazon Prime, so if you want to go check it out. Kind of confusing. It's a short film followed by 3 episodes. But it's short stuff. Go check it out. It's streaming now, as well as 3 additional episodes will be coming out in the near future. So one last thank you to our sponsors, Creative Stream, for use of their space, and Voyage Direct Primary Care. They have an awesome healthcare product for those of you who are especially filmmakers and other types of independent contractors. It's a great way to get some affordable healthcare. So check them out at voyagedpc.com, and we'll see you next week on Film 360.